Yep, the government shutdown continues. Day 21 so far. And the Senate will be back in session today, but no movement is expected toward passing a spending bill. Yesterday, senators tried and failed for the 11th time to move forward new funding bills. Now, one of note is the federal court system is now reducing its operations to only limited operations necessary to perform judiciary constitutional functions. While action stalled in the Capitol, there's been some movement at the White House, but on the building itself. Yeah, here to explain a little bit more of that is NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr. And Alice, it sounds like you can put a big under construction sign at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue.
That's right, Chesley, and it's a pretty remarkable sight. If you've seen any of the images, there are crews now demolishing part of the historic East Wing facade of the White House, and it's all to clear the way for the massive ballroom addition President Trump has long touted to host more guests. He noted at an appearance yesterday that the current ballroom, he said, could hold about 88 people and that the new one will hold 999. The White House says the president and private donors will cover the estimated $250 million cost. But it is remarkable. They're sort of peeling off a whole facade of one side of what is obviously an historic building in the White House. And that is not what President Trump had initially said was going to happen. This is reversing an earlier Trump pledge not to touch the original building. In July, late July, he said, quote, "It won't interfere with the current building. It will be near it, but not touching it, and pays total respect to the existing building." So now to see this whole, exterior side coming down is a shock for a lot of people, and many Democratic lawmakers are really slamming the move. That's the most substantial change to the White House, certainly in, something like a century. Yeah,
right. All right, meanwhile, you're tracking a legal fight over President Trump's National Guard deployments into American cities. What's the latest in Chicago now?
Yeah, so there are quite a number of legal developments on this front, and starting with the city of Chicago, there's an effort now from Illinois to try to appeal to the Supreme Court to have them hold the line on not allowing National Guard troops into Chicago, as the Trump administration has been wanting to happen. And it comes at the same time that we know there's already been an increase in ICE patrols in Chicago that the Department of Homeland Security has dubbed Operation Midway Blitz. And DHS says more than 1,500 arrests were made just last week. But yesterday, a U.S. district judge asked for more information about the continued use of tear gas and other violent tactics against protesters and journalists that violates an earlier court order. The judge wants to know what training officers have received and wants federal agents to be using body cameras. And the administration has said all along it wants National Guard troops there to protect ICE agents in Chicago, though local leaders are saying that there's no justification.
All right, staying on the National Guard, we hear there's news about the deployment where it all started, right where you are in Washington, D.C. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so there's word now that the deployment here in D.C., which, is the first one that kicked off this effort by the Trump administration to deploy the troops to a number of American cities, that they could be here through at least next summer. A new filing from the D.C. Attorney General's office cites evidence from the Trump administration saying that the general in charge told officers to plan for a long-term presence, which could run through the nation's 250th birthday celebration next July. The current National Guard mission in D.C. is set to expire at the end of November unless it's extended. You can throw Portland, Oregon in there as well. There's an appeals court there that has now sided with the White House, allowing the deployment of the National Guard against the state's wishes. That overturns a lower court ruling. So this has become a common story in cities across the country. And in that case in Portland, a U.S. district judge nominated by President Trump had blocked the deployment in Oregon, writing that it appeared that the president was acting in bad faith and making exaggerated claims of violence, including that Portland was war-ravaged. So certainly we know that the Trump administration has its framing that this is to protect against crime, and many cities and states are telling a very different picture. Chesley.
All right, Alice, thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.